name's David Martin, and this is Single Onion number 190, number 190. We're really excited to be here at Shelf Life Books. Just a few little housekeeping things. There's washrooms just around the corner. We're going to have two poets, then we'll take a little break. There's going to be some refreshments. If you'd like some wine, you can make a $5 donation for some wine. But also, before we get started officially, I'd like to acknowledge that we are here on the lands of the Treaty 7 people, including the Blackfoot from Siksika, the Kainai and the Piikani, the Dene Sarsi from Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda from Morley, Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley First Nations. And we also walk in the footsteps of the Métis people of Region 3, Métis Nation of Alberta. We're very excited about our event this evening. And I'm just going to introduce our host and then I'll let him take over. Wakefield Brewster, he is a professional poet and spoken word artist, and he is the current poet laureate of Calgary. So he is our host, our MC, and our guest. So please welcome Wakefield.
Good evening to each and every one of you and all of you out there. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Shelf Life Books. Thank you, Kurt Miles. Thank you, Single Onion. Thank you, David Martin. Thank all of you who have come out and braved the cold Canadian weather to spend some time in person with us as we celebrate Black History Month with this reading, which has a lot of intersectionality in it as well. We've got the East Coast, we've got the West Coast and Nigeria, and then you got the West Indies, improperly named right over here. We've got three very different poet and spoken word artists to bring very different Black experiences to literature to you. It's not all the slavery and the tribulation and all the terror. There's a lot of joy and triumph, accomplishment, and love. So we're going to bring you the spectrum as we have it through our respective diasporas. The first of our three poets is going to be someone who you all should already know. This is Bethel Afework. Now, one of the hardest things about being a spoken word artist, a poet, at least, is writing your own biography, because you think everything is important, you think everything is relevant. I can tell you, out of all the writing I've ever done, I hate writing biographies. Usually mine are way too long and have a lot of stuff you don't need. Bethel just put it out there real concise and real nice like. Bethel is an educator, poet, entrepreneur, and nature lover who is passionate about making cities more enjoyable, passionate about making Calgary a more welcoming city for all. Bethel founded Raw Voices in 2016. Currently, Bethel is the executive director and co-founder of the Alcove Center for the Arts. Give one Alcove. It's making its name, it's doing its thing, it's doing the work. The Alcove is a nonprofit recreational art space with the mission to make arts more accessible by creating welcoming spaces where everyone can foster their creativity. A few personal notes about Bethel is she is one of these low profile in a lot of ways, but highly present in our arts community. I met Bethel when she was a teenager at Can You Hear Me Now, I believe. And she was up there, and in my favorite poem, and one of them still is "Call Me a White Girl."
I'll perform it.
Yeah. When I heard that poem, so I have this kind of watching of Bethel go from stepping in to stepping up and giving steps for others to make their way through our arts community as well. So please, a very welcoming round of applause for my friend and pillar of the arts community in Calgary, Bethel Afework. Come on. Thank you very much. It's all yours.
Give me a cup of water.
Yeah, I'll find you.
I'm good for
I'll
now,
get the
but
water.
I'm sure I'll be parched later.
Hello,
Everyone.
Wakefield.
Oh, Surely can hang out.
Good lady.
So yes, thank you so much for the introduction, Wakefield. My name is Bethel, and honestly, I'm just gonna get started. This first one is called Time. Time. What an interesting concept. Oh, hello.
There you
The
go.
people. Thank you. All right. I'll start again. Hello, everyone. Join online. Time. What an interesting concept.
created to manage the perceptions of the moments that pass us, but time keeps going and the world keeps spinning as you stare at her motionless in disbelief. She continues to speak, saying those words, compatibility, and it's just not working. Like, what do those even mean? She could have said, let's not do this before y'all made it exclusive, but the regret of also not giving it a chance didn't seem right. And as of right now, she isn't the partner she wants to be. She wants to learn how to communicate better so she's able to project so she's feeling more clearly. Boy, I like you. But I guess not enough to wait around and hope things will get better. She just couldn't bear to look into your eyes and see all the compromises you're making. Just waiting, hoping for this relationship to get out of the stagnation, emotionally pragmatic, they call it, just attempting to be realistic of the situation. But she'll never forget how you were there for her many firsts, the way you looked at her with the utmost compassion, but time created to manage the perceptions of the moment that passed us, to pinpoint the moment they left us. But with time, you'll see the greater things, a better relationship y'all could be forming and will form than the one you're in now. Because people need time alone to learn and grow so their roots can branch out without any restrictions. Oh, time, the healer of anything, the teacher of everything, will show you that we weren't good for each other, a little too different from each other. And with time, she'll be there, ready to start something better.
Yeah.
This next one is just going to be a little short thing from my notebook. Okay. Funny enough, I wrote these two pieces, and one was for like the CSSD, like Calgary Catholic School District. They like randomly asked me to write this piece, and so I did, and I kind of like it. So it's nice, short and sweet. So it was about agape love was the theme that like 2 months ago. I don't even know what the theme was for. Honestly, it was for Faith Day. That's what it was for. Yes. So be like water, flowing through the lands of creatures, giving each of them life without keeping track of who's taking too much or too little. Be a tree, grounded and sharing its arms for shelter, its fingers and toes that rustle through the wind, giving comfort. No tabs, no asks, just ready to serve selflessly, replenished by the sun's energy, the universe's right hand, as it keeps its earthly creations alive. Learn from the systems who came before us, who know their purpose is to share like agape love. So that's called agape love, I'm pretty sure. This is another short one. I am one with the elements. I can find things to love in grounding things. There are people who accept to reject our human nature, to destroy, to take, to unleash their beast. Yet we find means to create our visions, to innovate, living comfortably. That's just a short one as well. Share those. It's like things that I'm like, oh, they'll never leave the notebook. But sometimes, you know, if the cozy room like this, they'll leave the notebook. This was inspired from a guitar riff that a friend of mine sent, and essentially the MP3 was titled Moment You Dream About. I don't have the MP3 or anything, but I essentially recorded it on that backing track. And it was like, you know, during COVID times when still COVID times, but you know what I mean? Like earlier COVID times, I guess. When I was really thinking about like, you know, all those things you dream about as a kid, or even now as like growing up, it's like, okay, well, maybe in 5 years, like as you grow older, I want to do this or do that. And then sometimes I was thinking about like, what happens to people when maybe like, what if like all your dreams came true? And I was trying to like really sit with that for a moment. So this is called Moment You Dreamed Of. What happens when you are granted everything you dreamed of? Do you sit in the emptiness and an unknown void of what comes
All right. Oh, you
Will
gotta
you
mute.
regret all the sacrifices you made and the promises you never kept? I wonder. Do you sit in the guilt from the opportunities you were granted, ones that one couldn't fathom? Are you disappointed in the emptiness, in the meaningless moments, and the ones that you miss who you wish to share the moment with? I wonder, was it worth it to get everything you dreamed of? Didn't think it'd make you so unhappy, so confused, so lost for direction when things somehow panned out better than you could have imagined? Was it worth the hustle? Was it worth the lost loves? Was it worth the late nights and the times you were fueled with them drugs? I wonder, was this moment everything you wished for? Sometimes the thrill of it all is the climb, reaching the mountain peak and enjoying the sunrise. Now you want to make it to the sky. Beings that can never be too satisfied. Substance scapegoats that leave us with unprecedented thoughts. I thought this is what I wanted. And why do I feel so gone? Great. Also, shout out for Wakefield for giving me this duotang. It's now my performance duotang. Da, da, da. Okay, so this one, I wrote, yeah, y'all are such a chill crowd. I'm like kind of giving prefaces on what which doesn't usually happen. But this one, I actually wrote because I was doing community service just to pay off a ticket at the time. And it was just it was a transit ticket. It was like a good almost $300. And they were like, well, you could do community service for it. And the weird thing about community service is that they tell you have to show up right at 8 a.m. Okay, like you show up at 8 a.m. One time I showed up at 8, like about to be 01. And like the correctional officer was essentially saying like, oh, like I shouldn't even let you in. But you wait for a full hour before you
didn't do
do anything. But you just have to be there.
We have to be muted.
Anyway, so I wrote this song. I beat this beat during that hour. Just like, yeah, it's a mini incarceration. I don't even understand why you have to be there at 8. It's like, can we leave at 8:15 at least? I don't know. But anyways, this is a true story if you're wondering. So enjoy. No eye contact, no hell. Oh, no please or thank you. All men asked me for gender, why? Makes me sit at the end seat of the van in the front. Do you think I fear sitting in between two men? Maybe, but you're driving. Everyone's silent. A phone alarm goes off. 8 a.m. sleep, music, right break, smoking break, reading break, washroom break, smoke break. Sign here. Where are we going? Don't know. Not impressed. I smile. Holds belt buckle. Frames groin. For what, dick? Would love to see you give me that type of attitude without your correctional peace officer badge. You think I'm a delinquent? Well, I am. I don't believe in all our laws. And sometimes I break stupid ones goofing off, wanting to save a couple dollars, purposely and stupidly defined, which cost me my Saturday mornings to pick up garbage at the roadside of 16th Ave or scraping paint off a rotten fence. This is what you call community service? I picked up 5 pieces of garbage in 2 hours. Are you proud, officer? Pick up the speed. Full band of 9. A conversation erupts with, was anyone at Chinook at Thursday at 5? What happened? Well, I was on the train going downtown and the incoming train had 12 cops by the station, all their guns drawn. I saw machine guns too, and they were only letting people off one by one, and they didn't let our train move either. The police probably thought it was a suicide bomb. Yo, ISIS is in Calgary too. Ha, probably a false alarm. It wasn't on TV, newspapers, nothing, as if nothing happened. Police here are a joke, just looking for ways to waste their time. Bruh, they got nothing to do here. Communal laughter of 8, awkward smirk of 1. There are 10 humans in the car, but only 9 people. Mr. Correctional Peace Officer, shouldn't you be the protector of our laws, boy? Not some punk ass who thinks standing with his dick out and boosting a badge stitched, boosting his false ego. giving me commands like I'm so criminal. Opens the door, then shuts it so fast without glancing at us. Guess we're animals, boy. Scares you'll see the kindness of a real human, not the one that drives white vans recklessly and drops us off at the side of the road to clean a clean street. And wonder why men acting up in this society, confused why all these angry men spit in your face when you don't even attempt decency. I ain't asking for a smile, simply respect, boy. I have the right to remain silent. So guess I'll shut up now, officer.
All right.
So I also want to shout out my homie Sid, who I'm in a duo band thing with. So I perform spoken word. His main instrument is guitar, but he can play the drums. He can play some keyboard as well. And we're in this duo called Basque. And this was actually our venue the first time we actually showcased as Basque at one of Wakefield's events. So it's a venue that's near and dear to my heart. And I mean, we didn't perform this piece at the time, but I wanted to plug is that we do have our music online, and there's actually a live version of this piece on our page. So it's BASK. If you just check out the bio, the link in bio on our Instagram under Basque Music, BASK Music, you'll find it there. So you can definitely ask me as well if you are curious. All right. All right. Next piece I'm going to perform is Skin. My skin aches from countless uncontrollable malicious states. Their skin aches from stories paper shredded into sawdust pieces to be recycled again and not know its origin. Their stories blown away like the sand they rest on, restless, looking at their young brothers and sisters whose hands could fit right inside a tunic. They were just breathing corpses. My skin peels from contact and their skin peels from hope and holding on to a thin rope of dreams they are dreaming will still come true. They don't dare believe that dropping out of high school or abused as a domestic worker is forever. Dear Mother Nature, I'm looking for a few raindrops before my village stops. May I remind you that no one around here will be able to change circumstances if their stomachs are left nothing to be digested with. My skin cries from loneliness. Their skin cries from another soul disappeared. Every day forced out of their childhood to tend rough work with their soft hands just to feed the remainder of their DNA. No child deserves this, but malnourishment will never be a myth, and for them to be walking dead, aching, knowing that this vicious cycle that just cycles, will never end. That they do this for their young brothers and sisters laying in the corner a breathing corpse. See, it's just skin holding us together, tending our fears and flourishing our fields. So whether I cut and see blood and faint and you crack and never come back for the same. I could have helped one, be hopeful in a physical world so they can touch it, inspire me to spark a luminescent light within to see another day. We save each other from fading. Oh, I'm like,
Yeah, she's good staying with us now. She's
alrighty.
she's always really glad to see Kevin.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what this is.
She,
I wasn't sure if I.
and she
They
sleeps
should be
in her bed
treated.
by our bed at home. She sleeps
Oh.
in.
Sorry.
Also, hello.
But Derek's not a big dog in the bed person, and she's actually quite large. If you put her on the bed with two people, it does tend to get a bit squishy. So she knows when she's here. She sleeps in her bed.
I wonder if they know.
Cuddly, like she's
Zoom. Broadcasting groups and Zoom, it's supposed to be Zoom.
All good. I'll keep it going. It's not distracting.
We're not hearing anything right now.
No, I'm not hearing anything.
All right.
I think we're good now, sorry.
All right.
This next piece is
Until she would always run under her feet so Dawn would fall. Like she's an old cat now, so she doesn't do it. But she was quite aggressive towards her. Yeah, she was Ben's cat. Oh, yeah.
I can't hear anything, so.
Oh, there's like things popping up in the chat.
I'm not hearing
I can hear you too. Terry, we can hear your conversation. Please, someone is like.
They're probably gonna, yeah.
Oh, they could hear us.
Okay, let's try that. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. All good. This next piece is called Prophet. Is this the mic that they're hearing this stuff from? Okay, make sure they're actually talking. If I were a prophet, to call people back to God, I would proclaim only the good, but not conventionally. For one, God isn't a father because a father image to some is very inconspicuous. God is infinite, genderless, and God is only a he because the time he was created was during male superiority. Woman, the giver of life, can have possibly handcrafted the life of the universe. The sun woke up in the morning and was able to take rest as the moon became appointed graveyard shift. That's God. What if some external spirit could wash away your sins? If the wheel is still broken, it won't move. God is beauty the flying feels and the best friend you confide to, and the generosity of the stranger that ran back to you and returned your wallet. No matter how many times you get on your knees and pray to your Lord, if you don't think the people that provided you with all these things, how will they know? That's because God is not my father. God is infinite, genderless. God is the dirt I walk on and the trees that sway and the clouds that I always thought I could sit on like cotton candy. God is smiles and laughter and my good conscience. And the only reason I would lock myself up in a room to pray is in hopes to hear that voice. Always loves me, never judges me, if I let that be so. Because you are God. So please, take care of yourself. I think I have one more for 5, 6. I'm gonna perform White Girl for some new faces. Thank you for new faces, old faces, for coming out today. This is definitely, I feel like, I always joke around and say, like, I feel like my poetry peaked in high school. I don't know what I was going through when I was 16, but poems are really good back then. But no, I still like the stuff I write, but it just came from a very like fresh, authentic, real place of like things I was really experiencing. And the things I perform now are things that I obviously experienced, but I don't know. My high school teacher made a joke once and he was like, man, I'm pretty sure your poetry peaked in high school, or maybe it was just like the level of poetry versus my age. It's like, you thought it would get better, but it's just like, I can't keep dropping bombs like that. Anyways, yeah, this is called White Girl. And actually the Can You Hear Me Now performance is like the first and maybe one out of like 4 videos on my YouTube. So yeah, this is it. Call me a white girl one more time. I dare you. Call me an Oreo one more time. Yet you run around slinging crap, complaining the popo's always on your back because you're black. Please, please save that for someone who could bear the ignorant, hypocritical, uneducated plea, because through the lenses I see, through the lenses I'm visioning through, you're only, the police only cuffed your homies for something they didn't do. Tickle me, tickle me, tickle me. Maybe you'll save her. Maybe I'll cough out that blue-eyed blonde hair I digested as a baby. Just contradicting your own words by protesting to protect Luther's vision, yet failing to flee from fatal fission.
light skin, dark skin. Now it ain't just Black, African, or Caribbean. It's, I want me a light skinned chick, nah, a dark skinned dude, nah, light skins, they're winning. Didn't we learn not to divide the undivided? Einstein even proved that would create bombs that will no doubt wipe us out once and for all. I dare you, say it again. Call me a white girl one more time. Then don't be complaining about the world is prejudiced because of your skin, never taking the time to look at yourself and see that maybe you hold some deficits. What? Malcolm didn't stick around long enough to guard the net? Your words, they don't hurt me. Your thick-headedness gratifies. Activists are fighting for all equality while you're standing by their side, despite the fact that you're saying that I ain't a Black girl because I don't have my weave or twerk for daddy. I dare you, say it again. Call me a white girl one more time. I apologize. I must have left the handbook on how to be myself behind. Or shall I say, surviving stereotypical vibes, conforming to what you are in society's eyes. I am sick and tired of trying to be impressive, just moving through these motions, disregarding everything you're saying. I dare you, say it again. Because you know what? It's all right. It's okay, because I would rather be called a white girl or an Oreo than glorifies some name that masters gave their slaves, my nigga.
Everyone died at Bethel Afework.
Thank you, Wakefield, for inviting me to perform today. As it is I guess, Black History Month, I definitely have very interesting identity, just with being Black. I never really grew up with a family that understood race because for them, everyone looked like them. And so even when my mom used to fill out forms, she was like, I'm not Black. She'd always check mark other and specifically write Ethiopian. And it was very give the form to someone and they'd be like, that's, I think this is filled out incorrectly. And she's like, no, she's like, I don't know what you actually mean by Black. And especially because she's an extremely fair-skinned woman, it's not everyone from Africa is Black. Race is a very convoluted, very much thing. It's a social construct, right? And so I definitely grew up with that as a second gen immigrant of being born in Canada, but going home and having certain values at home and, talking the way I talk because English is my first language, and then going to school and then having a very different experience of what people think that Black people should be, even though it's they'd ask me if my ancestors were slaves. And I'm like, my parents came from Ethiopia in the 90s. I don't actually know what you're talking about, and it's that history and trope of Black people is always the African American kind of culture, which is very integral to especially North American culture and society and even around the world. But it's especially in Canada, I feel the historical communities of Black people have very much been put to the side, right? We don't really hear about the history and things like that. And then also for me and my family, it's very interesting just kind of navigating identity. And so I was definitely called a white girl by only other Black kids. And it was very interesting of me growing up as a Black person, that being we ourselves reinforcing stereotypes. And, obviously racism and things like that exist because of dominant structures constantly reinforcing it. But it's very much interesting how within our own communities, especially colorism, this whole light skin, dark skin concept is very much we ourselves are internalizing the racism and of all the isms internalized within us. And it's almost the white man doesn't even have to do the work anymore. We're doing it to ourselves and, really trying to break that cycle between our communities is kind of where that piece came from. So as Wakefield said, I do run this thing called the Alcove. It's called Alcove Art Center on social media. We do a bunch of different workshops, live events, but really our main focus is creating this recreational lens on arts. And so we love to call it an art gym. And right now we're doing a bunch of pop-ups. We actually had a mixer last night and it was a lot of fun. It was at Trek Contemporary Gallery, but we use a bunch of different vacant storefronts, underutilized spaces to really showcase to Calgary what a recreational art space is, with the goal of one day running a facility. And we envision it as like YMCA, but for arts. And I know YMCA has an arts portion, but think of the YMCA gym portion, but for arts. Yeah, that's how I describe it. And yeah, and we have a really exciting project coming up this spring. So next month we'll be at the Eau Claire Lumber Hub for a Sea Space project all month, if you've heard of that. So we'll be in Eau Claire. Most days of the week we'll be open 3 to 9 p.m. So we'll definitely be posting that calendar on our website in next week. And then starting in the spring, sometime end of April and May, we're going to be starting a 6-month pilot to actually run and open full-time as part of a Meanwhile Lease program that's partnered with the City of Calgary Downtown Strategy. Yeah. And so, yeah, and so we're really excited. There's, you know, a storefront in the works. And so definitely, if you want to learn more about it, alcoveartcenter.ca or feel free to reach out. Thank you. Have a good afternoon. That's what I was not in.
Okay. That's our first reader. We have another reader coming up right now. Okechukwu Emmanuel Nnamchi is an Igbo man from the southeast of Nigeria, a country in the western part of the African continent. He is in Canada as an international student and divides his time between studies, writing, which includes poetry, and a slew of part-time jobs. Poetry and writing in general have always been an outlet for Okechukwu to express his thoughts and experiences thus far in life. He has been writing for a long time, but did not participate in poetry reading nor writing exhibition until the 2022 Pitbull Poetry in the Park poetry reading series, in which he fully participated. His hope is to use his words and written works to give strength where there is weakness, shine the light on some issues facing the downtrodden and the Fifth Estate, often ignored and overlooked, and finally to present questions that will compel an individual to think and search for meaning wherever that may be. Everyone welcome Okechukwu Emmanuel. Come on up, brother. Thank you so very much. It's all yours.
Please bear with me, I'm always trying to. So, good evening now. Hey.
Hello.
So I was trying to, you know, when Wakefield contacted me and he told me about this Black History Month event, so I tried to, you know, call up all the older works I've written. Nothing fits into the frame of Black history, because the idea of Black History Month confounds my understanding. Because actually I am not from here, neither am I from the US. And over there in the US, the Black history, they commemorate the trials and tribulations they experience and you know, from their colonizers. And then here in Canada, it celebrates contributions of Blacks in Canadian history. So the two opposing ideas, you know, confounds my understanding. So, and I spent close to 3 hours in the library to write up something that I can read. That will tell Lord what I understand to be the Black history experience. So I wrote something. I didn't title it because I just wrote it out there this evening, and I'm just gonna read from what I wrote. I hope it makes sense to you. It might sting a little bit, but this is my own. This is not his story or her story. It's my story of Black history experience, because I am reporting it. I never experienced it. Here it goes. It goes like this. Evil deeds done, long forgotten. Deposited figments of trauma, spanning centuries of subjugation and woes. Running wild as inherited sorrow, an inheritance of war, haunting the memories of generations still to come. Perpetrators dead, long gone. Dead and long gone. But left behind progenies whom to their forebears' errors logged on. Employing florid rhetoric to placate blistering minds with blustering stories of horrors, whitewashed as a bonfire of kumbayas. Glossary bedtime stories. These niggers are unruly. These niggers are unholy. Nigger this, nigger that. With forked tongues, lies were spread, and Emmett was bludgeoned to death beyond recognition. Because he whistled a call, a dice he rolled with his mouth and sealed his fate. A fate he placed on the plate of wraiths, tasty for his blood. If you say Emmett was brash and uncultured, what about Martin, who lived and left a legacy of non-violence? He played by the rules. Even in his displeasure, he played by the rules. But still, he died violently, erased permanently, just because he dreamt eloquently. His broken dreams are now reduced to nothing but memes, bootlegged and peddled as ornaments worn in the annual carnival. Black History Month, more like Black Misery Month. A compendium of boondoggle activities set up for Blacks in America to Google and doodle eons of their stifled history in 28 days. After which they spend another 11 months pulling drive-bys because they can't get by. Emmett died because he had no freedom of speech. Martin died because he used his freedom of speech. So many today are dying because they didn't have the freedom to breathe. Somebody tell me, what the fuck is all this freedom we speak? Black man, slow your roll. Look before you leap. Cause the steep slope you trip on is psyops. Trumped up to fuck you up. Go home to your own. Celebrating the achievements of Blacks in Canada. The word in itself is a very smart rhetoric. What is the achievements of Blacks in Canada, if not the achievements of Canadians who happen to be Black? When do we celebrate the achievements of whites in Canada? You make it a color thing, and still you say it is bigger than Black and white. Why do we stop acting? Why don't we stop acting white or black, and just act right. I speak for the black man in America because I know the plight of the black man in America. His milieu is designed to milk him like a cow, bred for meat and milk. As the wheels of progress turn, the cogs drown in the grease that oils the wheels. The black man in America is the cog trapped in the wheel of progress, drowning in his own blood, sweat, and tears in the name of progress. Science have proven that trauma can be inherited from the chemical mark it leaves on the genes of parents. Mostly the reason why these kids are violent. They can't control their emotions, always in their feelings, which leads them straight to the prisons. Their parents fought for a voice they didn't have, while living in conscripted and arrested developments. And today, these ones are still living in conscripted, arrested developments. But the difference is that they have a voice. They can sing and rap, but their lines are all scripted. Their choices sifted, forcing them to look onto appointed clowns, posing as leaders. Civil rights leaders, more like sniveling ass leakers. Freedom fighters turned underwriters, measuring black lives in monetary terms like insurance brokers, negotiating settlements and adding their own courts when they should be challenging amendments in the courts. I scribbled these highlights of the plight of Blacks in America, not because I know not the plight of Blacks in Canada, but it is because I know the achievements of Canadians who happen to be Black. And like the Blacks in America, they are the cogs in the wheel of Canadian progress. This is not a lesson in his story, but an excerpt from the plight of Blacks in my story. So I want to, before I go on, I want to thank, I don't know if she's anywhere watching, Lisa Murphy-Lamb. I owe her an eternal gratitude. She led me to the sensei, Wakefield. And you know I love you. So he's my brother, and I love him. And also I want to thank Francis Wiley. He has been my friend when it was very expensive to be my friend. And he charged me nothing. It cost me nothing to do this. He has been good to me. I love you too. I love you so much. But you won't even understand. For everything. So the next one is something I wrote a very long time ago on equal rights. You know, I come from a country in the western part of Africa where if you don't have money, you don't know what right is. You don't know what right is. And if you have money, even if you're the biggest fool, you are the most knowledgeable human. Because the wisdom and power and rights is weighed by the amount of money you can put on the table. So then I came to Canada and now saw that people, but before then I watch movies, I watch the news, I see people in the West, they talk about rights, their freedom and their, as their rights as humans. So I came here, I thought it was all rosy and that kind of thing. I'm not. Yes, it's different from where I come from. Very different. Here, people who express the knowledge of their rights, but oftentimes they are not granted their rights. But at least they express it. They are expressive here. But it's still somewhat related to what we experience back home. Back home, when you talk about your rights, they'll send the soldiers to beat you up, shut you up, and if you die in the process, it's okay. But here, it doesn't happen. But now they have these bottlenecks and, these bureaucratic bottlenecks and the custodians of internal securities that they use to create a barrier, a wall between the people and the ruling class. So it's almost the same thing. So I wrote something about equal rights. I hope you'll enjoy it. So it's the great debate that precedes us. It consumes us and precludes us. Equal rights. All rights and no left. The debate that confounds us. Like carcasses split in a pride's frenzy feeding. It violently divides us. Equity in the rights of persons, or equality in the right places. I know you can feel what's right. But what is right? And for what is right, privileges won't let you trade places for what's right. What good is one's right when one will have to fight to live right? Tempting souls into rigid channels, exposing them to unprotected mind fog. If it is not left wing, it is right wing. No one ever chose from no wings. Weak minds catching emotional infections. No health insurance. All suited convalescence. If it is not darkness, it is light. If it is not black, it is white. It's all in your head. But is that you thinking? Or the puppeteer is pimping? The pendulum swinging in a conscripted spectrum. Why is the bullet selective? Allergic to some class and color. How can you equate inheritance with a choice? Lumping them together with befitting words that says social justice warriors. What about my natural justice? Eroded and stomped out flat on the ground. Left for dead by groups I share a doctor with. Poor black babies. The one thing that torments you the most is society. The one thing that torments you the most in society, the choice you didn't make. The one cut that hurts you the most is society, promising you that there's always an equal fight in the horizon, where the law lures one to fight for equal stance, equal pay. equal choice, equal time. Repeat. Thanks. Mixing feelings with actual rights. Until a life is snatched from the scene and there are no equals left. So, I don't know if I'm thinking fast.
Great.
So wrapping up there, yo.
Okay, that's all good. So this one is the way of life. This is my I tried to read it to Kek. I shared it with Kek the other night at the Drunken Poets meeting. Yeah. We had a few drinks and we laughed. So what I'm going to read it again. He liked it. So that's why I'm reading it again. Because if he didn't read it over there, I would have discarded it and written a new one. Because that's what I always do. So it goes like this. It says, the way of life. Look within, without and around. Follow the sounds and vision. Look and see. That the real teacher in life is life itself. The sights and sounds you ignore, the passers-by you pass by. The visions within, the ones you manifest as you integrate. The visions without, your indoctrination as you assimilate. The fronts on which your war is waged. The inside and outside of life's meaning. The four peripherals on which your life is staged. The sides that harbor your blind sides. The left, which informs your right of each existential spectrum. The point, directing the ups and downs of your gravitational balance, your grounding. With strokes of paint and brush on a canvas, an image comes alive. Same results in the clearing of a virgin forest of trees. The path is cleared to the stream. The sparks of wonder kindled and unraveled. Same meaning in writing as it unfolds on a paper, blanked in emptiness. With a keen mind and scribblings of words on the pad. The meanings in a sentence are spelt and cast on a soul for order chaos. It is all in order, as all is tailored in nature, made to order, following the curves and contours of fate. As the sun rays penetrate the twisted cotton, I repeat, as the sun rays penetrate the twisted satin cottons, illumination on the wings of knowledge descends as virginity is lost. And man with iniquity is fraught, adhering to the details prescribed by fate, incubating him from the elements, seasoned and weathered, because life is the sum of experiences we live. Our solutions are the results from the trials we meet. The savage is wild because he's seasoned to survive. The trickster is cunning because he's threatened to survive. The geisha is sleek because she's determined to survive. In man is imbued the strife to thrive. With germs of chaos and conflict that makes or mar the vessel, their power. It is the way of life and the creatures she has. Finally, I want to thank everyone here for coming out. You know, I am always grateful. I am happy to always be in your midst. Poetry for me is like poetry for me is it is something that animates me. It animates me, my character, my emotion, my thoughts. So it's my lifeblood. And I try to write it in such a way that when I read it, whoever is spectating will have something to hold on to. That is why I write poetry. It is not for games or any, because if it is for games, it should be writing private job. But it's not for that. It's for the healing that knowledge may help to bring. That is why I write. I write because at a point in my life, that was the only thing I had. You know, you get to a point in your life, growing up in a third world country, like that is very, difficult. That life, it's difficult for one to survive if you don't have, huge relatives, rich people around you. There'll be a point in your life when nothing will ever make sense. You'll start dabbling into things that may even take your own life. You see, and then as you're doing all these things, you now stumble onto something that makes meaning to you, and now shifts your whole perspective and you changes who you are. If not for poetry, to be honest, I'm not trying to blow any trumpet, and if not for writing, I wouldn't be here with you. I didn't go to a good secondary school. Like if I'm talking to Nigerians and I tell them where I'm from, where I attended school, they are always surprised because of how I speak and the things I write. I never went to a good secondary school or primary or whatever you call it. I didn't come from a family that, had things, but writing brought me in. It was writing that took me to school. It was I was writing before I went to school. I want you to understand that. It was writing that took me to school. It was writing that made me work in a bank. It was writing that brought me in. So I have come to that point, that crossroads where I can't part with it anymore. Even if I'm not writing for people to see or hear, I write every day because that is the meaning of me. It may not make sense to anyone. You may not derive any meaning from my writings, but it makes a lot of. It is substance to me. That is all I'm trying to say. So, and I encourage everyone to write because it's therapy. Like, you see, people go to meet, all these shrinks. I hope I'm not insulting anyone. People go to meet them here in the Western world. Back home, there are no shrinks. Just like back home in my country, there are no third-party insurance. So I'm just telling you, like, if someone hits your car, settle it with the person. You either fight or you pray that he's peaceful and you sort it out, or you involve the police, which will take days for it to be settled. So these are the things we don't have back home. So if you are depressed, and back home depressed, they think when you're depressed back home, they think maybe you're lazy or that maybe they think something is wrong with you, but they will never want to help you because they'll think you're not pulling your weight. So people like us, when we get depressed, because the system is very tough, we write. And what do we write? We express what we feel, how broken we are. You see? So that's how I write. And that is what writing has done for me. It's therapy for me. So it's been beautiful. So I once again, I can't thank Lisa Murphy-Lamb enough. She's good to me. She did a good thing. So this is the last one. It's about cages. The first time I read it, it was at the Alcove event. So I'm going to read it again, and I'll try to make it, and I'll try to animate my words so that you get the picture. So it's about life, and we all claim we have freedom, and we socialize with each other. But when we get back into our closet, we are lonely creatures. Sometimes we cry. Sometimes we try to do crazy things to ourselves because there is this thing that is missing, and we just can't connect the dots. We're all searching for that dot that connects us to all things, But while you're searching for it, you don't have to, take your own life or anything, because you are not alone. Everybody is searching. Everybody is grieving. Everybody is in pain. I know that because I know myself. So that is why I wrote this piece about the cages I see in my life, how they present themselves, how they disguise themselves, like, people's opinion, religion, things like that. To me, I see all of these things as cages. Because I was supposed to be a priest. I went to a seminary school. But I got there, I thought it was all beautiful. I thought everything, to be a Catholic priest, it's the best thing in my place. If you are not an engineer or an accountant, the next thing to be is a Catholic priest, because all your family will be taken care of. Now I'm telling you the truth. That's how it is in Nigeria. If you're a Catholic priest, nobody in your family will ever be poor. So I tried, I went to the seminary school. But then I found out that my father, in his own time, attended seminary school and he dropped out. I keep asking him why he dropped out. He never told me. He said, well, you're going there. You're going to see things for yourself. Because I come from this kind of family where nobody pushes you to go to church. Not like other Nigerian, most Nigerian homes, they pressure you to go to church. They force you to pray. That is what in my home, that is one good thing my parents did for me and my siblings. It's like they realized they didn't have shit. So they said, okay, let everybody freestyle their way through life. I'm telling you the truth. So that sense of independence was instilled in me at a very young age. So when I got there, I saw the things they were doing. It's not, nothing is holy about the seminary school. I don't even know where the word holiness comes from. Nothing is holy about the seminary school. The only thing is that you come out from there a learned hypocrite, You will be smart, book smart. That's one good thing about the place. But because you study almost every time, you'll study like 12 times a day, So you got to learn. But the problem with the place is that it has no moral upliftment. No moral. Take it from me, I went there, saw it. So I wrote this work called Cages. And it's going to be, unfortunately, my last reading for the night. So it goes like this. What is a cage? A cage is an enclosure of limitations, the defiler of time's innocence. It is the serpent that deflowers time, depositing in it the seeds of mortality. It is the wage that puts the worker in his place, like the bank teller in his cage, slaving away for a pay that barely fixes his kids. A cage is an indoctrination, the calluses of insecurity, numbing the senses to a point of absurdity. It is that shards, the shards of inadequacies are selling the brittle mind. The spark that impels the inner eyes, blinding it to the woes of this reality. What is a cage? A cage is the serum that activates reactionaries that claim to be revolutionaries, who sheepishly succumb to the dictates of authority. Its autocracy, it spews on a humanity ever chasing these illusory dreams of an equality that will never be a reality. That is what a cage is. A cage is the cubicle of seclusion. That psychology of enforced boundaries, the psychology of enforced boundaries, an instrument of domestication, the emasculation of genius. A cage is the emasculation of genius. I keep jumping this thing, sorry. A cage is the emasculation of genius, genetically modifying kings to become pawns. It is the circles, the circles, what you call circles. It's the circles that incentivize clowns to play dress up as kings in a comedy of errors, staged at the expense of a crowd mesmerized by sleight of hands. A cowering crowd silenced by the flight and sight of hounds. A cage is the congregation of hustlers, those who claim to be hustlers, hustlers of empty husks, chasing clout in the name of freedom, like their father, Edom, who sold his birthright for a bowl of pottage. A self-castration equivalent to having your dinner for breakfast in famine. That is what a cage is. It's an outrage, the relegation of a generation to Stone Age in real time. It's a mental malady. A cage is the mindset the mind sets to cope with the fear of failure. It is that cage, the net, or should I say the net of safety that keeps the wealthy in walled glass cages. You can call it skyscrapers, like animals in the zoo, begging with their ominous stare to be set free. Tell me, who is Zumi? A cage is this entrapment we call society, the pomp and pageantry that comes with it, pure insanity. It is this shit show that we relive every other day, where show-offs and polywogs compete for vanity, forgetting that in the end, every chess piece, no matter how beautiful they appear, are destined to end in a box. It's an obscene normality, but a normality nonetheless. A cage is a life devoid of meaning. A cage is a life devoid of meaning and purpose. The incessant quest for external validation. A cage is that heart, hip-hopping recklessly, ever anticipating annihilation, always afraid. The building of bridge on, building of bridge over dry land, which is equivalent to exporting rice to Thailand. It's a foolish venture because all of Thai is rice. These are the cages, denying this age of its sages. Errors of a wrong education, coupled with the indoctrination, propounding the theory, the ideology, that white is always right. And that it's all right if black is seen as nothing but a shade of hindrance. When in reality, the most dignified color with accents of mystique is black. So this is to say that many have been living a lie and lives that lack experience, which has constrained them from accessing the liberty of unstrained thoughts, which is a region in the valley of decision, where no puppeteer, nor profiteer, profiteers. A cage. Cages are those signs and symbols designed to pit one against another. In the form of a belief system, a cult, a chosen sign, or an order. That's, self-entitlement, that feeling of entitlement that compels one to oppress another, even make war against another. That psycho trickery that entices mere puppets to play God, luring them to cause disorder. And my question to everyone is, do you really think that anyone can destroy and ditch this world and then move to another unharmed? Imagine the poverty of mind these minions must possess to become the 1%ers. I am not a dissenter. I am a discerner, simply pointing us to that which is staring at us. The obvious truth that we are still oblivious to. Pay no mind to the news and the views they use to snooze the fools. They are tools used to school and screw the youths into submission. Mere cages built in stages, on words structured to commit with impunity. To commit with impunity. To commit with impunity, physical and mental usury. Create apathy towards lessons that pertains to the alchemy of souls and power dynamics. Take my hand, soldiers of love. Let us free ourselves from these cages and live for ages, preventing this prevalence of the carnage and rage that is actually plaguing our race. Let us rewrite the pages of our stories that is already riddled with the mischief of false teachings. And fill our universes with, our universe with beautiful words. Beautiful words of us, from us. by us as distinct verses. We're all distinct verses. But let's do it as distinct verses of a harmonized melody, and not as repeated mistakes from his story or her story. You know, not as repeated mistakes from the annals of history or her story. Let's flee these cages. Thank you.
Everyone once again, Okechukwu Emmanuel Nnamchi. Thank you. I think now is that time where people want wine. And it's over there waiting for you. So everyone take a break. Those who are at home, please take a pee break, coffee break, smoke break. And we'll be back with you in a few moments. How many minutes? 10 minutes it is. We'll give it 10. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. So I love that. The effort, like.
All right, I think we're gonna get started again with our second half.
Thinking of what you put in to get the place going. Even if it is even as it is for a short time.
Very well. Thank you.
No, I like it.
That's another thing too.
I love
Yes.
the vibes, and everybody, though here, people just
Okay, we're ready.
I just got a couple of housekeeping kind of things, and then we'll turn it over to Wakefield again. If you want to find out more about the Single Onion, you could go to singleonion.com. You can sign up for our email list, and once a month you'll get a little update on what we're doing. You can find us on Facebook, we're on Twitter. We want to give a big thank you to our sponsors, to the League of Canadian Poets, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Writers Guild of Alberta. We've got a representative this evening. And especially to the Calgary Arts Development for supporting this event this evening. And of course, a huge thank you to Shelf Life Books for being our host for so long. We really appreciate them and all they do for the literary community in Calgary. And our next event is going to be March 16th. We'll be back here. So just keep an eye out online and we'll have some details for you that pretty soon. But to finish things off this evening, I want to turn it back over to Wakefield Brewster.
That's when you clap, yep. Good evening to each and every one of you, and thank you for having all of us here. One more time, Bethel Afework. Come on. Nnamchi. My thanks and gratitude go to the same people who make this happen, make it run, help us be here, that David had mentioned earlier. And I would like to thank every single one of you out there in here, and let's begin. I'm going to begin with a well-known poem now that is very Afrocentric, and then I'm going to give you 3 brand new poems. This poem is Blackout, and I think you all understand that this poem is about the history and the present day kind of situations that Blacks and other disenfranchised communities may suffer throughout their careers of living in the United States, especially. This particular poem was inspired by the murder of George Floyd, dedicated to the memory of my friend Patrick Chan, who died in the same way, in the chokehold of an authoritarian figure. I'm really happy with this poem these days because it took up to these 3 years to be able to really perform this poem without having too much cracking in the voice and breaking down with it, because it's a very close poem, very near and dear to me. However, I think this poem is really reflective of how some good things happened in COVID, during COVID, because if we weren't in lockdown, everyone would have missed it. And then when we scream 400 years, 500 years, everyone says, why don't you just give it up? Slavery doesn't mean it's over. This doesn't happen yet. The other thing that happened when he died that day was a whole slew of other brothers and sisters died that same way, that same day. We don't know their names, it won't. This is normal. I want to make normal different for my people. And usually speaking out on it is what makes things a little more normal. So this is Blackout. 2020 is supposed to represent perfect vision. Coincidentally, cultures be on courses of collision, pressuring the people into doings of division, debating, demonstrating, getting down with demolition. Coming crystal clearly on the coattail of the COVID. Same old shit story, put you in the no vid. Gotta stop a running man, click, bang, go did. But nothing truly rocked me like the death of G. Flow did. Don't believe the hype or the news or the lie. For every day my brother from another mother died. Goodbye, how I missed her. Lovingly I kissed her. Every day we miss a sister from another mister. Death defying daylight so that everybody saw. Another daily modern lynching under Jim Crow law. The Wu had always warned us, better get your shit in check. Because even though I got your back, you best protect your neck. I'm shaking when I show my wallet or even cash a check. I know this cop, he's going to call it. His life is under threat. He's popping off his pistol like the bullet owed a debt. My brain and his ballistic gonna have a tete-a-tete. A situation might arise that you did not expect. Immediately in their eyes, now you looking suspect. For though we're living freer, we also live in fear. For we know Mr. Officer is also overseer. Check the etymology, my message moving clear. Spectacular vernacular puts vision on the veer. He's the long arm of the law, but he's lawless on the land. He's the leading cause of Black Death. He's the bubonic man. He's the bully and the bouncer, a monkey man in dress. With key and cup, this monkey enough lock up your hand in stress. Even when you see a day in court, it's full court press. Next, they put the fullness of your life upon duress. He's the first line of authority in the master plan. A cop can kill you quicker than the average con can. With weaponry, with riot gear and weaponry, steel-toe boots to step on thee, the spawn of criminology, enhanced by new technology. Rounding up the black sheep, Seth, they're the herder. Slaughter in the streets is now akin to man and murder. Helen Keller flash bangs above the gun clatter. So tell me how you gonna hear that Black Lives Matter? There is no denying this priority is higher. Historically, it's never white lives coming under fire. This land of opportunity, all built for one community, instead of seeking unity, shall punish with impunity. The reasons for their methods are the marching and the madness. Honoring our elders who fought hard but never had this power of assembly and of gathering in speech. Black cats couldn't even bathe on Whitey's beach. Now we making moves and moving mountains, mobilizing, raising fists around the world to garnish globalizing. And sometimes in the same way, we'll find true fiction wearing. Number 45 is rolling out the military. The military marches. The marching turns to mobbing. The mobbing needs a muting. But now it's turned to robbing. The robbing got relentless and led to all the looting. So number 45, he simply said to start the shooting. Brandishing a Bible to allow his ill behavior. Acting like a judge, jury, sentinel, and savior. Encroaching with his evil up until 11th hour. He ain't the only one that must be parted from their power. Hands on law, fists on flex, guns on draw, knees on necks. Hands on law, fists on flex, guns on draw, knees on necks. Impossible to take a stand when flattened to the floor. I'd ask my brother Patrick Shan, but he ain't here no more. We lost him 20 years ago exactly to this plight. And even though they snuffed him out, we all still see his light. Legislation lacking, and we've got to lift the lockout. Politicking plans, we've got to back out. Freedom fighters falling into floss and force the blackout. So join me when I say that every day gonna be a blackout. Thank you. I've been working on some stuff in the background because usually that's how stuff gets done. And I have these 3 new poems. I call these poems honor poems. I have been relying on my ancestors, some of them living here presently, some of them really my ancestors. These poems are based on the styles of other spoken word artists, poets, rappers even, that their styles lend to mine. Some of them I had to discover. Some people said, you better check these guys out. I've taken some material, some poetry, and I've looked at some of the poems that seem to speak to me and speak to the material where I see that there is a big correlation. And I've taken my poetry and done it in the style of particular poems that these greats have done. These 3 poems, 2 of them are from Gil Scott-Heron and 1 from the mighty Mutabaruka. They are titled Family, Whitey Up on Mars, and This Poet. These are very new for me, so I hope that they fly the way they feel. And I have finally begun to bring back my 2 most important pieces of artistry together, and that is music and words. So 2 of these actually have me drumming on djembe, and they go along with the poem. So here we go. We'll see how this works out. This first poem I'm going to do is called Family. And it's an honor poem for Gil Scott Heron. And the poem that I bounced it off of, used my material that was similar to his, was the poem called Brother. This poem has a lot of friction. It talks about the friction in my Black community. My sister, my brother talked about it. They told my same story. It's unbelievably uncanny how both of them told stories that are exactly the same as mine, pieces. So I'd just like to bring this to the forefront and say, I hope you enjoy this. It's about Black friction, Black unity, and what are we going to do about our community? There we go. We deal in too many virtuals, family. All this Facebook fuckery, Instagram idiocy, Twitter twattery. Far from forging, fashioning, founding, nor funding Black unity. Newsmongering for a flex on Black tragedy. Ambulance chasing after the next Black agony. While the man is still behind on equity and inclusivity, he's also still behind Jordan Peterson's meritocracy, masculinity, and misogyny. How many books on your Black lit collection? How many titles you got on the intersection? I don't think I know you would-be Black revolutionaries too well. I think I know you would-be Black revolutionaries well enough. Preaching precariously on pixelated perches, creeping the coldest corners of the winter net, talking about blowing the white man away. We're not at that yet, fam. Calling out community creators for collaborating with council. Blasting bystanding buyers bereft of bolstering Black businesses, but who stitched you up and then rubbed your back? Who gives you work when you give them flack? Who bred your pet, then insured your car? Who paid your debt and handles your law? Some of us been checking your act out kind of close, and by now, even you know it's looking kind of shaky. The way you've been pressuring pigmented peoples with your pure Black persona, beating down on brothers with both hands because they can converse in colonial, jumping down on sisters with both feet because they're after post-secondary letters. But guess who ain't gonna be around when your BA is in trouble? I mean your Black ass. I think it was a little too easy for you to forget that you were a sister before Oprah and Obama. I think it was a little too easy for you to forget that you were a brother before Bob and Barack. You and your milky white maidens traipsing the town on Friday night while the hood stood still in satellite, stared in scorn while steadily blunted, held hips and shook nips while you feigned and you fronted. Do you remember? You and your cracker jacks out for sloppy seconds on Saturday night. That skin angel white, you couldn't wait to get in. Let all the self-hate and fetishism begin. Can you recall being called coffee with cream, being Black as a Turkish proverb, being exotic? Might you recollect? Wanting wild white women, boasting the Black myth, posturing the proof that the myth to be fact. Are you still there? You may want to defrag your hard drive, boy. We know your software. You need to get off your throne, queen, because you ain't making shit. Both of you need a breezy day to go outside and command the wind, throwing corn-forked stones from crystal glass holes, suffering from the worst kinds of NIMBY syndrome. And you best all clean up your own backyards before you go knocking on your neighbor's doors. You best be trained as the greatest of guards if you're gonna go be the generals who wage all the wars. Show that brother you call an Uncle Tom just where he's wrong. Show that sister mad as hell. Why you deem her a Jezebel? You see, all you want us to do is see you shut up and be black. Or you stay blackest in the lily whitest crowd. No, I'm saying this straight. I'm saying this loud. I'm a poet of my people. I'm black and I'm proud. So I will help that woman. I will help that man in the very best way I poetically can. That's what brothers or sisters are for, fam. Thank you. Next poem I'd like to read to you. It's called Whitey Up on Mars. The poem that Gil Scott Heron did was called Whitey's on the Moon. And that poem was basically black commentary about where money goes. Because not everyone gives a shit about how the space race. Some of us don't give a shit about terraforming Mars when you can't eat. People have a different concept of what the world's money could be going to, especially when people are coming from that perspective of the have-nots. So Whitey on the Moon has a lot to do with Whitey up on Mars. So I had a poem that had these elements of where our money was going, how my culture, my people see it moving through, around, past our people. And I said, okay, these two poems have some stuff in common. So I did the reconstruction. I got out the djembe and decided to do this poem called Whitey Up on Mars. COVID got my sister Nell. Whitey's up on Mars. She lost a sense of taste and smell. Whitey's up on Mars. I hear this shit can straight up kill. Not Whitey, he's up on Mars. And I see you, it ain't no thrill. So Whitey's up on Mars. Waiting times are all time long. Whitey's up on Mars. Something's wrong, this system's wrong. Yeah, Whitey's up on Mars. And right before our very eyes with Whitey up on Mars, let's make healthcare privatized while Whitey's up on Mars. Tax breaks boost big business out. Small biz bills ball up like gout. Record rate insolvency served to curb emergency. Landlord done up raise my rent and Whitey's up on Mars. I said I gave up paying for rent if Whitey's up on Mars. Though this hood gone straight to hell while Whitey's up on Mars. The market's good, raise rent or sell because Whitey's up on Mars. Homelessness just ain't no joke and Whitey's up on Mars. Houselessness just ain't being broke, but Whitey's up on Mars. I do declare, I do purport while Whitey's up on Mars. We need more systems of support, yet Whitey's up on Mars. Social fabric done gone tore. Now Big Brother's eye is sore. Bezos, Branson must go mine. Race to face in place and by. Smith keeps speaking sovereignty. Whitey's up on Mars. Now she wants an APP while Whitey's up on Mars. Funding for it won't be free or CPP because Whitey's up on Mars. Underfunded schools all over. Whitey's up on Mars. Not in Rundle, more like Dover. Whitey's up on Mars. Push conversion therapy. Whitey's up on Mars. Banning ideology while Whitey's up on Mars. Reading at 2 grades below. Signatures that have no flow. Lack of practice, time foretold. Cursive writing, old school code. Transit system did I mention. Whitey's up on Mars. Conversation of contention. Whitey's up on Mars. A ride with at risk of the smother, Whitey's up on Mars. A place where we all fear each other, Whitey's up on Mars. Stuff that Samsung in your face, Whitey's up on Mars. Earbuds are your saving grace, Whitey's up on Mars. You know, I just about had my fill with Whitey up on Mars. But let me open one more bill while Whitey's up on Mars. Thank you. A poem very powerful from the poet, philosopher, preacher, politician, superhuman, Mutabaruka. He composed a poem called This Poem. I had a lot of elements that mirrored some work that he was doing. And this poem that I've written is called This Poet. And it's a ride. So I hope you enjoy this. This poet from thalassophobia, which washed and willed its wretched way, the death of the depth in my DNA. My foremothers wailed those waves into seas which swallowed so many sibling souls. This poet fears dogs and horses. This poet is epigenetics. This poet is history upon repeat, for this poet learns nothing. This poet will praise his predecessors, names like Linton Kwesi, Dennis Al Capone, Iroy, Saul Williams, names like Big Ute, Gil Scott, Prince Jasbo, Daddy Uroy, names like Prince Farai, names like Mutabaruka. This poet is purely pissed. Earth for isms imposed by ists. Alt-right, blood and honor, wets it like a proud boy. Smith sovereign, MAGA wearing tiki torch and convoy. This poet is revolution against classism, colorism, chauvinism, cronyism, consumerism, conservatism, capitalism, colonialism, global division via political revision. This poet is a clone and a goat. But this poet won't be welcomed with worldly written works, can't be embraced by English enthusiasts, shan't be praised by preachers, no politicians. This poet is skin, bone, blood, 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 blood and fire. This poet can burn down Babylon. Yes, this poet is a Dinkra, ancestors and all my relations. Treaty 7 land, Busa Rebellion, Johannesburg, status cards, West Indies, status cards, Indian Act, secession, Barbados, apartheid, Uhuru freedom, freedom, Turtle Island, Uhuru freedom, Uhuru Mala Africa. This poet is changing need. This poet is needing change. This poet links lineage, lightens linguistics, loves language. This poet is overstanding, arisen, awoken. This poet is speaking like the foot has spoken. This poet is not BA, BFA, MFA, PhD, or BS. This poet is NYC, UDIG. This poet began before and after other poets start and stop. This poet won't survive us, will not bury, neither headstone. This poet will not mausoleum, crypt and tomb, nor catacomb. This poet doth protest to taking up space. This poet fathered time like a blind watchmaker. This poet signed an unknown language using no hands. This poet is oratory and composed braille for the heart. This poet is part of the story, solar history, lunar, her story, your and your story, and every story untold. This poet is hot like the iron for the truth to unfold. This poet is now digressing, yammering on with the yakety yak, coming through Vitesse with a brah, 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 making you wish to silence me. This poet is resilient, and this poet is redundant, garrulous, loquacious, long-winded. This poet talks too damn much. This poet cannot be blamed, but shall ensure the whip aching. This poet cannot be tamed, but will endure a buck breaking. There is no backstory to this poet. This poet is on a milk carton. This poet has no record. This poet is a missing person. This poet will set the record straight. This poet turned up missing. This poet is stricken from the record. This poet shall contest the arrest. This poet raped his wife to be silent. This poet wants his attorney. This poet requests a jury of his peers. This poet is the star witness. Objection. Poet objects. This poet, objection, overrules. The poet overrules. This poet refuses your Alford plea. This poet refuses your legality. This poet is a forensic file. This poet is in contempt of court. This poet is content in contempt. This poet has a right to a fair trial. This poet read Kafka. This poet was put behind bars, put in the hole, put in the box, put on death row. This poet shall tip the scales and flip the bales. This poet declares a mistrial. This poet is a cold case. This poet will see his day. This poet will see justice. This poet is ancient, old, and forever. This poet plagiarized Maclean's magazine, Suncor, Bell Canada, the TSX, the Globe and Mail, the RCMP, and CSIS. This poet here has no secrets. This poet shall be labeled deeply shallow shallow and vaguely pedantic. This poet is seeing you stress through the cipher. This poet is eluding alphabetical acrobatics. Despite your desires to desist and divulging resolving requires you insist on indulging, for you need to hear what this poet says next, knowing that this poet doesn't ever duly disappoint, appreciating the precious space you graciously appoint. And now this poet through space and time, so shall remain this poet in mind. Thank you. A little note on the first deliveries. Thanks. Grace. I'll finish with another oldie. And I have been, of course, I can call it a career now. I can, finally. The last, so 23 years at this microphone. But especially moving to Calgary and especially being embraced by this very, very gracious city. I'm feeling fairly catapulted, and I didn't do it alone. I did it with all of you, and I really thank you. I would like to remind you, all of this is Black poetry. It doesn't matter what I talk about, even if they were rainbows and unicorns. It's Black poetry. It's the lens. It's who I am, because this world says it matters what you look like. Now, a lot of us like to say we don't see color, we don't see gender. Don't say that. That absolutely disrespects that person's living and life experience. See it all, because it is seen. Especially when I'm trying to be sensitive to younger writers, younger generations, and they're struggling with body image and everything else that goes along with it, because it's a lot more complicated for these kids than it was for us as kids. I'm older than some of you kids, so it was different. And I say to them, listen, you know, it matters what you look like and get used to it. I didn't make that rule. I tell them I'm from Toronto, real left and liberal. And it's very, very multicultural. It always has been from the onset. I looked out and saw everyone. It was easy to pretend you didn't see color because there were so many. As soon as I decided I'm not seeing color, the world reminds you very quickly, or what you look like. It reminds you very quickly that it matters. And that is really the impetus and the inspiration behind writing this poem called Blacklit, because I realized that it matters what I look like. It even matters to me what I look like. And it's okay. It's just something you have to deal with. So, because it matters what we look like, this poem is titled Blacklit. The entendres are there: black, lit, literature. I think this poem really does exemplify my explanations of how I simply use poetry to relate to the world around me. So thank you for having these wonderful poets. Thank you for coming out on a cold Calgary winter night. Thank you for celebrating Black History Month with all of us. And really, simply, thank you. This is Blacklit. I swallow some blackboard paint so I can paint the word, paint a word, spitting ink or chalk. I still talk. A fax machine paradox, proper truth stopper. Can't stop me or mock me. European MCs can't top me. When a brother gets a hold of technology, it's microphone recology. Dealing with your lame footing cons to puppetology. I offer no apology for bovine or swine, domesticated equine for mankind. My own mind up and mixed artistic with linguistic, and I slung a hot rock like Basquiat when he brought the black thought. Bleeding paint upon paper, he changed and then deranged the sight of man, the earth raper. He closed the eye caper, and some years later, since my brother's life broke, I realized I am a smudge, a perfect brush stroke with pretty colors. Pretty colors. I am orange and yellow and red. I surprised myself when poetically bled myself. I was tongue twisted up like a dread with thoughts that brought sticking up in my head. Thrust back to life like Lazarus. Stripe had me, strike me a hazardous pose. Wide open with wrists and neck exposed. Liquid life trickling eclectic flows from my veins. Pure fire. Voodoo rains. Funeral pyre. My heated aspiration to be an element not simply elemental or even instrumental, but a song and a symphony with self-pity, sympathy. I'm conducting those in the first row who think they know. I make them all play second fiddle if they don't jump out the middle and flee like they were escaping the passage. Piss, shit, and vomit on the slavery comet, founded inspiration and black and broken bones, the sounds of the lands that we call our homes, and we can all hear it, drawn to its timbre, like whips to cracks, licks to backs, beat to axe. Funny how we stood taller when we lost our toes and held our heads high in a regal manner, defying the yokes, learning the language to create great stains, kings and queens now bound in chains and walking like gods. Unlike the gracious hosts, now passed on to the land of duppies, weighted down by the shackles of brutality that they constructed inside the halls of shame, each one has been inducted back to the books, back to the beginning, back to the future, what we were and what we are, back in the black, hiding in the back row, back in the black like these cats don't know, black like my namesake, black like death row, black like rum cake, black like afro, black like my taekwondo brothers, afro dojo, because you can't wake a blank slate, because on the willing you can't reap a rape. I take your shots like I'm in the Russian system, off the shoulder, wrist strike to the throat, I'm a diss 'em, and I'm a talk louder, and I'm a walk prouder. I'm leading by design because this hour is mine. I leave you with the fever, then you let catch a slap from the Anosha Bishobi Ingalosi of rap. This here is the evolution, amoeba to man, grunts to grill, slavery to bravery, cryptic like messages written on rice, rolled up in blunt papers and burned like a foremothers at the stake, hung like a forefathers dancing from trees, a painful slow waltz done in black and broken knees. Please, please, please help me find the method. I talk so much that my teeth itch and my hair hurts. Lyrical spurts. I try and I try and I try. You say you want a sensitive man and then you hate me when I cry. I've got to internalize and re-energize and represent because you know my words, quick, clever, could never be spent. And in this industry, no poem C mediocrity can mess with me, though it's not all I'll be. In this here reality, I'ma flow it cause y'all know it. Black is poetry. See? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And books, and all the other sponsors and those who make this happen that David Martin mentioned earlier, we thank all of them. And I think that is how we're going to end this evening. Number 190, I believe that I heard. That's a lot. So if you give it up one more time, 190. That's a lot of repetition, good repetition of poetry, poets, and people who love literature and the arts life here in Calgary. So thank you all for creating a wonderful artistic community. We are putting Calgary on the map. It is becoming attractive enough for people from other places to come here, and it's good enough for those who are here to stay. So let's just keep it up. Thank you so very much, all of you. Happy Black History Month. Thank you.